Good morning to you all. I do apologise for joining you a little bit late, but I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to share with you my experience of working on a few low-carbon retrofit projects. Just presume it's the right hand. Yep. So just a little bit of an introduction to Radian. We were formed in December 2006, and it was a three-way merger between Drum, Swatheling and Windsor housing associations. We now collectively own about 17,000 affordable homes in the southeast region, and we're also looking to build around 500 to 800 new homes each year. We're a large construction client, and as a consequence of that, we're also a large consumer of natural resources. But I'm pleased that we have been able to develop a good reputation for sustainability and innovation in recent years. I'd like to begin by outlining the challenge of the retrofit within the United Kingdom. I'm sure some of these statistics will be familiar to you. But of course, we're now committed to an 80% reduction in climate change emissions under the Climate Change Act by the year 2050. And we have somewhere approaching 26 million existing homes in the country. And it's estimated that around 80 to 85% of those existing homes will still be with us and occupied in the year 2050. These homes are responsible for over a quarter of national carbon emissions. And it's estimated that in order to hit the 2050 targets, we would have to undertake a refurbishment to some 500,000 properties each and every year in the run-up to 2050. You know, that's a huge task. We're talking about probably the same number of homes are in our second city, Birmingham, each and every year. The government's heat and energy strategy, which was a consultation paper, is soon to come out as the home energy management strategy, set an ambition or an aspiration for 7 million whole house retrofits by the year 2020 to make up for inactivity in recent years. And that's by C80 we mean post-refurbishment, when the carbon emissions, household carbon emissions, have been reduced by 80% to their pre-retrofit levels. And of course, if we are really serious about making deep inroads into cutting CO2 emissions, we really have got to look at the existing housing stock. This year, I think we're down to about 120,000 housing starts from a target of 300,000. So, you know, new builds are making a very small contribution to that 27%. So the first project I'm pleased to share with you is a Generation Homes project that we undertook in December 2006. It commenced then in a village called Kingsley in Hampshire, which is off the gas network. And this was a partnership project with the Energy Saving Trust and consultants Camco, formerly ESD. And the aim here was to demonstrate how significant CO2 emission reductions could be achieved on 6 1950s homes. And at that time, we had a target to achieve a 60% reduction, because at that time, that was the government's 2050 target. Of course, it is now 80%. But we modelled that we should be able to achieve 75% reduction through sort of SAP modelling. We also had an aim to reduce residents' running costs, because they were extremely high, as much as £1,300 per annum. They were using solid fuel Park Grey fires and with a combination of night storage heaters. So we were hoping to bring down their running costs by as much as half. We did put some sophisticated monitoring into this project, so we could collect some very useful data, and I'll give you feedback on the latest findings shortly. But the average cost to undertake the retrofit to these 3 homes was £25,000 per property. There were 3 bungalows and 3 two-storey, 3-bed semi-detached homes. But we were fortunately able to get half of that cost in grant income from various sources. You can see just a schematic of the environmental strategy there, and I'll just say a little bit more about that now. So, a package of measures that we employed here, always starting with energy efficiency before we think about the more expensive renewables. We did the basic measures. The cavity wall insulation went in, increased the thickness of the loft insulation, double glazed windows, low energy light bulbs. That's an easy win. And we also undertook, as part of our best practice standard, air pressure testing on these homes. And to my surprise, they actually came out quite good for 1950s homes. If you understand the 1 to 10 scale, 10 being the minimum building regulation requirement, these 1950s homes came out at 5.5 air changes an hour, so which was actually a bit better than some of our new builds at the time, to my surprise. having improved the airtightness, we also then put more controlled ventilation in with heat recovery into the wet rooms through the wall heat recovery fans. And we also trialled a new innovation called wastewater heat recovery, and on the top right there, if you can make that out, that's a coiled copper heat exchanger, and we inserted that where the vertical pipe was coming down from the shower and the bath waste, because normally we're losing 80% of heat directly down the drain when we take a shower. With this device, by circulating just mains cold water in it, we're able to recover 60% of the heat and recycle that. In a domestic situation, perhaps not as effective as you could imagine if it was in a sports centre where you've got football or rugby teams, taking showers afterwards. You get a quicker return on your money if it was there. You can also see diagrammatic of the ground source heat pumps. The design depth there we had for the homes was 80 metres down, and you can see the drilling rig. We're just basically boring into the ground and using the natural stable temperature of around 9 degrees that's held in the ground below the frost zone, and it just conducts heat into the ground loop of water and antifreeze. We didn't have adequate space to do this in a trench, but a key learning point here for us was that we need to remember that the UK has the most varied geology in Europe, and this can make the drilling process a little bit uncertain. We had a very soft, wet sand, and it caused the boreholes to collapse, so it took a little while to get this sorted out, and in the end we had to put in 2 shorter boreholes at 40 metres depth and connect them together. You can see the heat pump itself in its box there, which is about the size of an under worktop fridge. And then on the bungalows you can see the photovoltaic panels. There's 1 kilowatt peak, about 8 metres square PV there. You'll notice that they face slightly different directions. That's southeast and southwest, and as a result of that we only lose about 5% of the annual yield. But moving on to the more important part is about the feedback. We commissioned Camco to go back and interview the residents, and also to look at all the energy performance data that we collected. And this was based on 2 years of quite good data. And what we found was that the carbon emission reductions in use, if you remember, we modelled 75%. Well, they were, in fact, between 43 to 74%. And perhaps of more surprise, the running cost savings were from neutral, no savings at all, up to 56%. And I could perhaps suggest that residents' different behavioural patterns is partly responsible for this, and also the fact that these homes had very poor heating before, and I think there's a tendency for residents to take up a lot of the benefit in added thermal comfort, which of course is absolutely fine. They're entitled to do that. But these sort of findings are very interesting, particularly when we're starting to look at pay-as-you-save schemes and carbon trading. We really need to prove that the savings can be achieved. Resident satisfaction's been a bit mixed, and we know that we've got to, despite our best intentions, briefing residents how to control systems to their optimum. We're going to have to go back and deal with them again. And in the very cold snap in January, we had a complete nightmare because a power cut affected the systems. I mean, it would have affected a gas system, but of course heat pumps take a lot longer to recover. They're not as instantaneous like setting fire to a fossil fuel to keep warm. So our current project is in Petersfield. This is a C80 project where we're retrofitting 20 precast concrete homes. These are the hard-to-treat homes known as REMA. Here we had residents' annual bills of around $1,200 a year, and we undertook an option appraisal to see the feasible technical solutions that we could do and what we could actually afford within the budget. As a result of that, we decided to adopt a core package of energy efficiency measures and apply that to 17 of the homes, and that would bring about a 70% reduction in the CO2 emissions against regulated emissions, which is the heating, hot water, lighting and any fans. And then there was 3 empty homes where we applied an additional solar package to those to push for the golden 80% reduction. You can see a picture of the homes there. You may be able to make out the sort of large concrete panel walls. There's no insulation at all in those. And there was a before energy performance certificate. A lot of information, I'm afraid, on this slide, but if I can quickly run through it, I hope you'll find it quite useful. You can see the baseline position here, and in red the figure of 7.5 tonnes of carbon dioxide each year for that home pre-retrofit.